The United States administration's push for a ceasefire, whatever that means, even a partial one, is making headlines, no doubt about that, this week around the globe. But what exactly is the Trump's White House planning? And how is this being received there in Washington? My colleague, Ukrainian journalist Dmitry Anopchenko, joins us live from Capitol Hill. Dmitry, hello.
Oh, hello. Thank you for having me. Washington calling. My feeling is there's no such a plan on the table, no detailed roadmap either. What the Trump team has is a general idea how to move forward step by step. And the first goal is to reach a partial ceasefire in the coming days. And that's actually the focus of the upcoming talks in Riyadh, where efforts will center on stopping the fighting in the Black Sea region. If that could be achieved, the next step would be getting both sides to agree not to target energy infrastructure. That would set the stage for the main objective, a 30-day ceasefire to be brokered by the United States. And if all of that falls into place, the White House is considering organizing a summit in Saudi Arabia, and the idea is to bring President Trump together with Putin, or possibly to meet firstly with President Zelensky there in Saudi Arabia, and then with Putin to begin discussing the terms of a longer-lasting ceasefire. Well, according to multiple sources here in Washington, the internal deadline for reaching that summit is the end of May. Oh, at least that's the timeline the Trump team is quietly working toward. But it's important to be very clear, this is not a peace agreement, not yet. And the immediate goal is to pause the fighting and silence the guns. And for real peace negotiations, those could begin in fall, but only if the earlier steps succeed. Ukrainian diplomats who've been involved in the recent behind-the-scenes meetings with American officials say that the process so far feels so much improvised. According to them, there is no such a thing as a Trump peace plan, just a set of the broad talking points, which much depending on how negotiations evolve and how events unfold on the ground. And there are real challenges. That's where the real challenges begin. And the first one is the Russia's true intent. According to intelligence assessments prepared by the National Security Council during the last month of the Biden administration, Russia is very unlikely to seek the real de-escalation. Instead, they may try to use the talks to break the diplomatic isolation and regain leverage on the global stage. And the second concern is the fragility. Even if a 30-day ceasefire is agreed to, there is no guarantee it will hold. And if it collapses, the US officials worry that Russia could accuse Ukraine of breaking the terms, turning the diplomatic tables and shifting blame. That concern was shared with me, for example, with Mike Carpenter, the former senior director at the National Security Council, and here is what he told me.
In principle, the idea of having a shorter duration ceasefire that you can then build upon as a foundation for something longer and more durable, I think that's a sound approach. Another approach would be to have the two parties, for example, agree not to strike each other's critical infrastructure, and then to build off of that into some sort of a larger agreement. However, I mean, unfortunately, again, getting back to fundamentals, I don't think it's going to stick. And I would be surprised if you got through a 30-day period. Let's just assume that the two sides agreed to a 30-day ceasefire. I'm highly doubtful that you would get through the 30 days without violations of the ceasefire. Simply because if you look at history, if you look at the period from 2014 to the present day, there have been any number of ceasefire agreements between Russia and Ukraine. Almost all of them violated immediately after conclusion, mostly by Russia. And, you know, depending on whether there are monitors on the ground who can verify, you know, who started it, oftentimes it's a little bit murky in the eyes of the international community. But as I say, most of the times Russia has violated the ceasefire, but it's pointed the finger at Ukraine. I would not be surprised if we ended up in a scenario where that was the case again.
And unfortunately, at this point, there is no clear mechanism to monitor or to enforce such a short-term ceasefire. even if it's agreed upon. And there is a main concern among many US analysts and former officials. Another red flag they point to is that President Putin may, under certain conditions, agree to a temporary halt in fighting, but not because he is ready for peace. Instead, the concern is that he could use a ceasefire as a tool to secure a summit, to break through diplomatic isolation, to stand next to Trump in front of cameras, to send a message to the world that, okay, Russia is back at the table, but that doesn't mean he's ready to go further. It doesn't mean any long-term settlement would follow. And Mike Carpenter also warned me about that possibility. I'd like to share that soundbite. Here is what he told me.
No, I think that's the central thrust of why Russia is approaching negotiations with the Trump administration with a positive frame. I think the leadership in the Kremlin would like nothing more than to break the diplomatic isolation, to be seen as trying to negotiate a resolution to the war. Many countries in the global south especially will welcome this. They have been pushing for a diplomatic resolution for some time, irrespective of what that resolution entails and whether it involves undermining Ukraine's sovereignty or territorial integrity. A lot of countries around the world have simply wanted the war to end, period, no matter what the terms. And so I think for Putin and for the Kremlin, I think this is something that they very much want, to be seen as trying to resolve this, even as they continue to fight and to apply leverage against Ukraine and continue to make maximalist demands. I think that's the bottom line here. Those maximalist demands are not going to be conceded. They're not going to be watered down in any way. I think they're going to be fundamental to the Russian position at the negotiating table going forward, at least for the foreseeable future.
Just wanted to share, I recently spoke with Professor Stant, who for many years served as a national intelligence officer on Russia. And something she said really stayed with me. She pointed on that in modern American history, there have been already 4 major attempts to reset relations with Russia, and everyone failed. So what we are seeing right now may be the 5th, and the danger is that this time the stakes are much higher, and the cost of getting it wrong could be far too great. Kiev, back to you.
Right, well, Dmitry, thank you so very much for your detailed view and for your answer. Indeed, very interesting position. As far as I understand, just last very quick question. There is no plan yet, that I understand. But it very much seems, to me at least, that President Trump just wants peace in Ukraine on whatever the terms for Ukraine are, even if that is a de facto capitulation to Putin. Would you agree to that? If I say that, would you agree to me?
Well, I don't have my own opinion. I may base my opinion on what I heard from the American experts, from the former officials.
Absolutely.
Lovely. I'm just a reporter, so it's not my function, and it's not my role to make an opinions or to make statements. What I can do, I can share with you what I heard from the people who worked in the Pentagon, who worked in the National Security Council during the Biden term, and their opinion, their honest belief that Trump really won this peace. Right. He wants to be a peacemaker. He wants to be a Nobel Prize winner. He wants to make a fast deal. Right. He believes he is a great, deal maker.
Right, sure. I mean, of course, you're a reporter, no doubt about that. But my feeling is that I'm also basing my background here, right, trying to form an opinion for my audience, because nobody I know. I tell you more, than being in Munich on a security conference, I've been talking to people, and everyone I know says that President Trump is a man of impulse, and that there is no plan, and then there will be no plan. But President Trump just can't afford for Ukraine to have a weak hand on the negotiations, because then his image just of a strong man and a strong leader of a mighty country, of someone who is trying to make America great again, just falls apart.
Let me give you another argument. My feeling, and I'm really sure that every negotiations, every talks, it's a two-way highway.
Right.
So if we got Ukraine today in Riyadh, if we got Russians tomorrow, it's always a possibility to tell about the red lines Ukraine has. It's always a possibility to tell that, okay, we will not go for something, we will not agree for something. So it is what diplomacy is.
All right. Well, anyway, again, thank you so very much for the absolutely stunning view from inside, from the Capitol Hill. Dmitry Anopchenko, my dear colleague in Washington, thank you so very much. We definitely need to do that again. I have a lot of questions. Thank you so very much, Dmitry. It was a pleasure, and hope to do it again.
Thank you. It was terrible. I heard myself in the earphone.
All right. Well, anyway, I mean, the main thing is done. We've done the interview, and it was absolutely stunning and very lively, I think, also.
No one knows about those small technical glitches. Right,
wow, I mean, we are at times of war, so a Russian missile just obliterated our office. So there's no problem with sound at all. Finally, we've done our job. And again, thank you for your time and expertise. It means a lot to us.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.